Hi, this is Ruth and Gil Pensac, who many of you know already from the many things that we're doing together. And I've asked Gil if he will share a little bit from each day of creation. So we're going to do that in as each day comes along. And I'm just going to ask Gil to highlight one or two things. But first of all, Gil, if we could start with not the first day, but as it were, in the beginning, how the whole chapter starts.
Mhm.
And if you can maybe just highlight one or two things that we maybe haven't thought about before. But the other thing that I really wanted to ask you to do each time is could you sing for us how you would sing up until so the evening and the morning were the first day?
Mm.
Up until that point, and then go ahead and from that and just share whatever you feel.
Would you like to start with the singing then?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Genesis 1, verse 1, and we are going to be reading in the Hebrew all the way to the end of verse 5.
Right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so it would go like this. בראשית ברא אלוהים את השמיים ואת הארץ, והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו וחושך על פני תהום, ורוח אלוהים מרחפת על פני המים. ויאמר אלוהים יהי אור, ויהי אור. וירא אלוהים את האור כי טוב, ויבדל אלוהים בין האור ובין החושך, ויקרא אלוהים לאור יום, ולחושך קרא לילה, ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום אחד.
Cool.
Okay, so that's all the way to the end of the first day. And actually, I mean, if you want to talk about it, I mean, I think that your question is referring to the first two verses. I mean, we see that God started creating on in verse 3 when God said, "Let there be light," and um, and I think that the very first thing that we need to really linger on or think about is what is the beginning? I mean, what is the beginning? You know, children, when they think about God and we tell them about God and we tell them that He is not restricted to time or anything like that, and He has no beginning and He doesn't have an end, and I mean, it's very hard for them. I mean, it's also hard for us, let alone children. And they ask, but who gave birth to him? I mean, who is his father? Who is his mother? Right? They would ask, who are the parents? How did he come about? That's all they know. And in actual fact, it's very difficult for us as finite beings to think about the infinite. And when we think about the beginning, then we basically understand that it's the beginning of time as we understand time. Okay,
Mm.
but it doesn't. But it's not this isn't the beginning of everything becoming. It's not the beginning of his existence, because his existence doesn't have a beginning. So in the beginning, it's the beginning of time as we know it. It's basically when the world was created. But before that, there is a question: was there, I mean, was there anything else? Because we find today, I mean, according to Jewish tradition or the Jewish, let's say, counting, the world has been existing for the last 5,784 years. And we so what happened 5,785 years? What existed then? And how could it be that nowadays, you have archaeologists finding excavations of bones of various things, and I don't know. Let's even take seriously the whole theory about dinosaurs existing and bones found, belonging to those creatures, and they assess that they existed, millions of years ago. How how do we deal with that question? How do we settle that, with what Torah is saying to us? So one approach could say, well, the archaeologists are wrong. They got it. They get it all wrong. It does. It's not a must that they get it right. That's one kind of answer, which is okay. But we could also say that before God started this time as we know it, then he created, he created and destroyed, just as he created this world and destroyed it in Noah's time. He created and destroyed. And when he created those worlds before, which is a fact that doesn't contradict anything that which is being said here in Torah. I mean, it could be the case that God created and destroyed worlds and he's not telling us about it. Why? Because Torah is not a book of science. Torah is a book in which God is teaching us how to get to know him, how to come close to him, how to worship him, how to be more like him.
Mm.
It's not about the scientific observation about the world. I mean, if it were, then we would probably get a little bit more than just one chapter about the entire creation.
Right.
Clearly, that's not the focus.
Mm-hmm.
So to us, there is no contradiction with the hypothesis that God created and destroyed. And as evidence, we see in verse 2 that the Spirit of God is hovering over the face of the water. So water did exist.
Yes.
God didn't create water in creation. It was already there. Okay, well, on the second day, and when we get there, we can talk about that. On the second day, God separated the waters. But when we just read it like that, we understand that water existed. So water existed, and as we know, water has concentration of salt in it, and that salt is a good material to preserve various things, even bones from more than 5,784 years ago. So to us, it's not a contradiction. So
Mm.
in the beginning is the beginning of time as we know it, but it doesn't mean that nothing existed before that, or God didn't created and destroyed. It doesn't mean that. And another thing that really comes to mind when we read verse 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And when we want to better understand God's nature, God's virtues, his leadership, it stands out that it is God who created, and it is not by the name Lord that he created. The name Lord, the four-letter name, which represents God's infinity, etc., the name Lord only comes to us in chapter 2, verse 4. And even then, we always get it in the context of the Lord God, in a balanced way. The Lord God, never just the Lord, never just God. Okay, so something is clear right from the start. There is a question that comes to our minds about the names of God.
All right.
What does it mean Elohim? What does it mean Adonai? What does it mean the four-letter name? What does the name El Shaddai mean? I mean, there are various names, and we would like to know what each one represents. And the name Elohim in Hebrew also means a judge. And we see quite from the start, we see that God created the world in righteousness. And often we have this strong desire to believe that God created the world with love, with love and compassion and forgiveness and mercy and grace and all those wonderful things, which of course are included. But in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is his righteousness, him sitting on his throne as a judge, not as a merciful father, as a judge in his righteousness. And we're glad that that's the case, because only thanks to his righteousness, creation comes out very accurate and limited and restricted and balanced. I mean, if it weren't for his righteousness, then the heavens would fall on the earth. And there won't be any gravity. So anything on the earth would float in the air, and the waters would flood the earth. Okay, and like no border would be respected in the rules of nature. It's only thanks to his righteousness, to the name Elohim, that all the rules of physics and nature, that as we know them, that they exist. And that's quite something to pay attention to, that, we have a tendency to make God be who we want him to be. I want him to be loving. I want him to be forgiving. I want him to be a father to me. I want him to be my best friend. I want him to be a miracle maker. I want him to be all of that. And he is. But he's not only the things that I want him to be. There is more in him. And I think this is an opportunity to think about God the way he wants to be, or the way that he is, and not the way that we want to make him be.
Amen.
And there are all sorts of questions, that we can bring from the beginning of Torah. We know that Torah, for example, is about it's about there is a significant part from Torah, from the first five books in the Bible. There's a significant part dealing with commands. Commands and laws and statutes and judgments and obligation, the relationship, and it's quite intensive as we continue reading, as we read, the book of, the towards the end of Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, so many commands, and that's clearly the focus of scriptures. So why doesn't Torah begin with that? Why doesn't Torah begin with the first command which was given to the people? Why doesn't it start with Abraham, for example? I mean, why don't we start with Abraham, and we keep this little bit, as some kind of an attachment in the end. In any case, it's not the focus. In any case, it's not about the scientific observation about how the world was created. In any case, it is so poor in details. So
Mm,
why have it in any case? Why have it at all?
right.
Let's just start with let's get serious, right from the start. Let's talk about Abraham. Let's talk about Mount Sinai and a revelation and all that, a big revelation of the Lord, to all those millions of people. Why not starting with that? Why starting with such a with a chapter that in any case is clearly not the focus? And one of the answers that we have in Judaism is that right from I mean, that we have no ability to handle scriptures unless we accept God's sovereignty and ownership over this world.
All right.
And because he was the one who created, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God is saying, I created it. You, man, must remember that. I created it, therefore it is mine, and I will do whatever I see fit with it. And I will choose and I will make any kind of choice that I want in this world.
Mm,
And we have no right to question his decisions. We have no right to cast doubts on his decisions, or to criticize his decisions. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It is his. He is the master. He's the artist. Nobody knows a piece better than the artist who made it.
right.
And his name is engraved in this piece. His name is this is the life for this piece, which is an ongoing one for the last 5,784 years.
Right. Amazing.
And so we started in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth to recognize his sovereignty and his ownership of this world.
That's great. Thank you so much, Gil. And we'll
Thank you.
continue with day one next time.
Thank you.